Hello everyone, I'm Misha from Made Up Research, and today I have a special thing for you. Welcome to Everything I Can Do, You Can Do Too, which is a show, not a show, which is a series where I do and explain everything that I can do, so you can do it too. No matter how small or how complicated the thing is, you can always ask me to give you a tutorial on anything, and today I want to be talking about powder foundations. Listen, powder foundations have been everywhere lately. I love them. I recommend them to everyone. And people are always a little bit hesitant because they're like, but I don't know how to use it. Like, how do you... I think it's a texture thing partially because you're used to applying a lot of wet stuff on your face and suddenly someone tells you, oh, you don't have to do that. Just take a powder. Of course, you're going to be a little bit like sussy about it. So today I want to show you how I prep my face and how I apply my powder foundation. So let's get to it. So sometimes you have good skincare going on. I don't have any skincare going on right now because I just washed my face. So you can either just keep your skincare as it is and not prep with anything else, or you can just prime your face like you would for any other makeup application, but keep it very minimalistic. You don't want to go in with anything too greasy, too heavy, really depending on what you're using and what your skin type is. But in general, you don't want the powder to get mixed up with like too many substances on your face. So for that, I'm going to do my regular priming. First, I'm going to take the Matte Putty Primer from e.l.f. and just use it on like this area of my face where I have the worst pores and where I get the most oily. Just a tiny bit of that. Maybe a bit on the forehead over here. Because I really don't want to overdo it. So just take a tiny bit, really work it in, take your time. And then for my actual primer for the rest of the face, I'm going to use this Wet n Wild 5-in-1 Essence Primer Liquid. I really like this. It's super lightweight. So I just take a few drops and spread them on my face. So there's something, some priming going on, but not too much. Now, before we go in with the powder foundation, remember, you got to use your creams and liquids first. So I usually tend to go in with concealer first and then the powder foundation. I'll be using a lot of Maybelline today, so I'm going to use the Maybelline SuperStay Concealer just to conceal my under eyes. And I can do like a center of my face as well if I want to. Let's say I'm just being lazy, so I'm just going to do the under eyes. Quickly blend that in. There we go. Now, I'm going to set these under eyes separately because powder foundations are usually formulated more heavier than your regular powders. So you don't want to put them on your under eyes because they're going to be pretty heavy. It's going to be taking them down. Plus, you're putting the thing on a wet concealer. So there's a chance that the powder is going to turn darker. You don't want that at all. So I'll just grab my Kiko setting powder. Very simple, just white powder. And I'm going to grab my powder puff and quickly set the under eye very lightly. All is nice and ready and set and bright. You can even see it on the camera. So there's that. Now, if you want any cream bronzer, cream contour, cream anything underneath, you can put it on now. Blend it in and then put on the powder foundation. I don't need to do any of that. I'd rather do it on top. So I'm just gonna show you how to apply it now. I have the Maybelline SuperStay one. This is a great powder foundation. Amazing coverage, super great longevity. It's like one of my favorite powder foundations. One important thing, the color match has to be perfect. Always, otherwise you're gonna look ridiculous. Another thing, I just don't like using these. It is dirty, I admit it. I used it to touch up a couple times, but I just hate applying it with that little sponge all over my face. Don't do that, don't do that. Now you have many different ways of applying this. My favorite way, which I'll show you on one half of my face, is using something like this. This is the Essence, I think it's like a puff. It's super old, super stained, but super reliable. So I'm just gonna go in, pick up a little bit, and just smear it across my face. That's basically it. So I'll just do that. And kind of like work it in. Not really in circles, but the powder is a little bit movable, so you can really control where it goes, where it doesn't, if you want more or not. So, and it does give you like pretty high coverage. Kind of like a high medium, you can build it up to like really high, of course depending on what you use, but there we go. So you can see this side of my face is foundation, this side has nothing. Very smooth. Looking really good. I also like this one because it's not super matte looking, so the face still looks like quite lively and like really nice. So there we go. That's like the more coverage you can get out of it. Or if you don't have one of these, or if you just don't want to use it, of course you can go in with just a powder brush. I don't like using any old powder brush for this. I usually use this one for my powder. It's so disgusting, I should wash it. But it's like very fluffy and like not dense at all, which is not gonna do a lot of justice to powder foundation. So I would rather use something like this. This is like kind of in between a powder and a foundation brush. It is pretty dense, but it's not as dense as a foundation brush. So it's a good powder brush. I just really like it. Or you can use even like a lighter one, like slightly more fluffier one like this, but don't go in with anything like super fluffy, because the coverage is just not going to be there and it's going to be harder to manipulate. So this one, I think this is from Kiko, is their 102 powder brush, is like the best for me. So you just pick some up and you're going to go in and kind of buff it like you would with like any powder. You just have to be careful about the coverage, the movement. Basically, you know, just pay more attention to where you're putting it and how it's looking, because it's more pigmented than like your regular translucent powder. So if I went in with like less powder and like more fluffy motions, blending it in more, I would get even less coverage. But I think this is looking like really good. I like the way this looks a lot. So you have like the fastest base ever. And now, of course, you can put on any powders you want on top. It's gonna look perfectly fine. If you want to use creams or anything more liquidy on top of it, you can, but I just have to warn you, you are risking the texture issues. So it might get separated, it might clump up, it might not work. But in my experience, if you wet the face beforehand with like a setting spray or something, it's going to work. Just don't go in with anything too liquidy. That may not work even then. Alright, so I just added a little bit of something to finish off the face, but as you can see, you wouldn't really tell that I'm not wearing like a regular foundation. It looks very similar. So let's just go over some pros and cons of this to, you know, decide if this can be for you or not. So my obvious pros are super easy and fast application. I can be out of the door in 5 with this because the base is taking like no time at all. Another pro is that it's very easy to touch up with this. Like no matter what happens to your face, you can always grab the foundation and pat it back and it's gonna look fine. The only problem is if you mess up your bronzer or anything like that, it may look a little bit weird, but it's definitely still salvageable. So touch-ups, super easy, it's portable, it's easy to carry. Also, it's a powder, so if you're flying somewhere and you have only a carry-on, this is gonna save your ass, for sure. Now, some of the cons that are obvious is that it's a little bit different, so it's, you know, a learning curve. The shade match has to be really, really good. Like, this has to be your face in a powder. This can be very annoying because sometimes the shade ranges cannot be all that impressive. You know, just you may have like a specific undertone that has not really been manufactured all that much. So that is a little bit of a bummer sometimes, that it's harder to find a powder foundation for your face that is going to cover it really well and it's going to fit really well. And also, if you have very dry skin, you should really think about what kind of powder foundation you're buying. There are ones that are super dry. There are some like this one, which in my opinion, not as dry, but still very long wearing. Or there are actually ones that are like hydrating powder foundations. So you really have to look into the formula based on your skin type. But honestly, for me, this is like my favorite base. I wear this on holidays. I wear this like on days when I cannot be bothered. Or if I know I'm gonna have to wear it for a very long time, I'm gonna need a touch up. This is what I go for. And for me, powder foundation is the hit. I'm so glad they came back in the last couple of years. I'm very happy about that. So that was it. That was my rant about powder foundations and showing you how to use them, because everything I can do, you can do too. So like this video and subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!